In this video, I'm going to make the stegosaur, but this project didn't start in this video. So there are 3 previous videos, and you should really go watch them because it'll help you figure out what I'm doing here. The first video started with this drawing, and from that drawing, I wound up making this body. And how I got from that drawing to this body is the story of the first video. And you can watch that video, just click on this card up here. So once I had this body, I realized, you know, this is kind of it's a nice shape. I could use this to make a lot of different animals, a lot of different characters. So what I decided to do then was to make a rubber blanket mold, which I did, blankety mold, and I made it out of this body. Here, let me put it on, I'll show you. Let's see if I can get that thing to fit back in there. Oh yeah. So it goes all like in there. So that was, and that, by the way, was the subject and the project in the second video, was making this rubber mold. So you can go watch that video in this link up here. So once I had the mold made, I mounted it onto this machine right here. And you know what? I'm going to mount it on again. It takes me a minute or two. Let me do that and I'll come back to you. Okay, I didn't really put this mold on there very well, but it'll probably be good enough to get the government contract, so it'll be okay. So I put this mold, mounted it onto this machine, and filled it up with resin, and woo, spun it. And the reason I did that was because then I could take this mold off the machine, which is quicker than putting it on the machine, and from there, I made these hollow castings. See, they're hollow. Made a bunch of them, actually. In fact, you can see it. See the back of the steg? See that? Look familiar? So that's how this whole thing worked. This drawing became this shape, became this mold, rubber blanket and mother shell mold, became these castings, became this piece, and a couple of other pieces that you already saw the piranha in last week's video. So that's how this whole thing started. That's what we're doing. And from here, you can watch me build this piece. It's the next day, and the Magic Sculpt is all nice and cured, and we can get to sanding on these kids. The sanding continues, making good progress. It's going very fast, as it usually does. This is 80 grit. 80 grit's probably my most all-round useful grit. 80 grit is the perfect balance between removing a lot of material and not leaving those kind of really deep, hard to get out scratches that you get in like 60 grit or 50 grit. You can sand out 80 grit marks pretty quick and easy. Coming together pretty good. To make the stegosaur fins, I'm just going to start the ball, kind of roll out the shank of the fin, mash it flat. Just kind of roughly cut them to shape, smooth them out. Pretty much all there is to it. Then you just want to make those in a bunch of different sizes, different shapes. I'm going to make the legs of the stegosaur. To make tubes, I find that it's better to start with a ball because then you have no seams anywhere as you roll out the tube. Now this clay, this Magic Sculpt lump, has lost its stickiness, or most of it, so that's good. That means that I can roll it without it sticking to everything. Now the question is it big enough? Get this goober off of there, bend it, about like that. One of the few pieces left is the Stegosaurus tail. So go ahead and roll that out. It's kind of flat. It's not. Just trying to get the end of the 2 ends to match, look like that, and get it on there. It's going to look something like that. I need to make a jig for positioning the legs on the Stegosaurus, and to do that I'm going to trace the body on this block of styrofoam, which is just scrap styrofoam. I save packaging styrofoam for exactly this sort of purpose. I want to make the tracing fit the outline of the body pretty accurately, because this jig is going to have to hold on to this guy pretty well. I swung you around to the opposite side of the table so you could see what I'm doing here. Hope that makes sense for you. So the piece, I just put this piece of scrap wood here as a fence, and that's just going to tell me exactly where I want these to drill these holes. I'm just going to roughly indicate. And I don't have to achieve space shuttle precision here. It's not necessary because I've got extra leg meat here that I'm going to use to trim off. Something about like that. It's going to be tricky because my 5/8 Forstner doesn't have a pin on it. I might have to really clamp stuff down. I do want to locate where these things are, and then I can transfer the marks to the other side. So let me just harden up these marks a little bit. Trace around the bit. It tells me more where that is. All right, so that locates the legs pretty well. As you can see, I've got the table set up at an angle. So now we're going to go ahead and drill that thing. I'm going to enter the material really slowly. Wow, that went better than I hoped it would go. All right. Sometimes you just better to be lucky than good. This held down worked also better than I thought it was going to work. So that was good news. Here we go. Just going into the resin super slow till it finds the perimeter. We did so good on the first set. Let's see how we do on the second set. Again, coming in super slow till I establish the perimeter of the drill bit. Once I get that, I'm golden to just drill. I don't tend to see my materials as being either hard or soft. I view them as being whatever state they're in. Like earlier, I was sculpting these fins when the clay was soft, and here I'm grinding on them with a drill press and a sanding wheel. Viewing your materials this way will open up all kinds of new ways of working on your sculptures. Now we'll get the fins final sanded on the wheel. Just go through and get them all done. This is really the quick way around this hand sanding job. I'm working on the side of the wheel, where if it was to catch the part and throw it across the room, it would fling it away from me instead of into my face, which is always a good plan. Also, if I bump into the wheel, it'll just push my hand away as opposed to get myself sucked into the wheel. So it's relatively safe what I'm doing here. All right, let's mix up some epoxy and get some parts glued in. Okay, get that stego tail well glued. Get the tenon part done. Get that well goobered. Crank that puppy in there. Very nice. Now, let's take these fins out for the time being. And they're not glued in yet. Let's make sure that's in there right. Jammed in there good. And that's all going to be filled in, but let's wipe off the excess. Nice. How's that looking? Okay, looks good.
Time to spackle up a stegosaur tail. Pull that out a bit into a bead. Just mixed this Magic Sculpt, so it's pretty sticky. It wants to stick. And that's good because we want it to stick. Now we just smooth it out. All right, not bad for the first tail application. We'll let that harden up, and we'll keep on shaping it till we love it. Let's get these stegosaur legs glued in. Once again, 5-minute epoxy to the rescue. Just put it on the tenon of the leg, goober it on there good. Goober up the hole. All right, let's see how that does, how that feels when it goes in there. Oh yeah, I think I got a pretty good bead of glue it going on in there. See, that felt pretty strong. Okay, we're gonna do one leg at a time, and we're gonna balance the legs against the other legs. So we'll let this one harden up, then move on. Fitting these legs is basically just a simple matter of scraping and grinding. But as you can see, they fit in there pretty nice. See how that's going to look? Yeah. We're going to obviously even up the feet once we get them all in place. Let's mix up some more epoxy and glue that one in. I'm mixing up a nice wad of epoxy to get these last legs glued on. I got the front legs already in place. Now we just need to position the back 2 legs, which is going to be easy, no problems. I like to really wet out all mating surfaces so I know that the glue is well attached to all the surfaces. It's not just on one surface. Now I'm going to do my other 5-minute epoxy trick, which is I'm going to put the glue on here, but I'm not going to assemble the parts until this glue develops quite a bit of tack, because I want to put it in there and I want it not to move around. All right, I think we have enough tack built up on these legs. They're pretty sticky, and we're going to go ahead and put them in place. I decided to put this steg on a board. That way I can pop him into the hot box when I get him and get the legs installed. Just cram the legs down into their mortises, into their holes. All right, I think he looks pretty good. 5-minute epoxy, you gotta love it. He'll be ready to go in a few minutes. But to get him to sit all flat, nice and flat, I'm just doing this. Just a piece of sandpaper and just keep going. It's the safest and most gentle way to do it. I'm gonna do all the final sanding on the body before I put the fins in, because I sure don't want all those fins in the way. One way you can locate the position of the eyeball on the head is to kind of draw it in place with a small Forstner bit, which is what I did here. Pretty freaking brilliant, if you ask me. And then you just wad your clay into the outline that you drew, and you get a nice round eyeball. Beauteous. Time to glue in some fins. We'll do 1/2 at a time. That way I can glue them in and then clean them up. They'll be a little bit complicated to clean around them if I glued them in all at once, so let's not do that. Use our handy Q-tip stick to mix the stuff, get it well mixed. As usual. Okay, I'm going to start. That looks pretty well mixed. Let's start by wetting out the mortises, the holes. If you don't know those words, the mortise is the hole and the tenon is the part that sticks in the hole. I don't know how many hundreds of millions of years those words have existed in the woodworking trade, but that's what things are called. Stick in the first one. I can kind of adjust it how I want it. I can wipe if I want to. I numbered the fins because I liked how they looked at one point, and so I numbered them so I'd remember how they went back in there, which fin went into which hole. Okay, that was fin number 7. Just trying to show you guys different ways of gluing stuff up. There isn't any one way of doing stuff. There's just the way that works best for you, and that's just trial and error and learning, figuring it out as you go along. But they fit pretty good. Nice. All right, let that set. We've got the one set of fins glued up. Now let's glue up the other side. I also went around and spackled them up, as I said I would. No time like the present. Lay out the glue. All right, use an old used Q-tip. Cut the head off. Away we go. Okay, same as before. Let's just wet out these holes while the glue is really liquid. Make a nice, thorough wetting of the surface. All of these tenons on these fins are loose. There aren't any that are a perfect fit for these holes. So I'm being pretty goopy with the glue, pretty liberal with its application. And now we can, hate when that happens. Drop the fin in the old epox. It's nice, going to have a nice little veneer, a 5-minute epoxy on it. Great, super. Oh well, life will go on. Okay, that was fin number 2. That starts over there. Fin number 4. Now this fin, I'm gonna goober this fin up, but I'm not gonna put it in yet. I'll show you why in a minute. I'm gonna let this glue get a little tackier, a little thicker before I glue this fin in, because this tenon is particularly small and I want to angle it. You'll see what I'm talking about. Put that over here for the moment. Man, I mixed up just the perfect right amount of epoxy, didn't I? Fin number 10, get it goobered, and it goes. Okay, beautiful. Now, we'll wait for this to develop lots of tack, and then we'll put in the 2 big fins that I want to hold up so that they're not too drooped over. I don't want them to lay down too flat. I want them sticking up. All right, this epoxy is pretty grabby now, so I'm going to jam it in there, tip it upright like that. That should hold it now in place, because it's mighty grabby. And then at this angle, put this in, and I want to angle that fin like that, not quite that much. Push it around. There we go. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, I'm gonna let that lay down like that, because I want those to be pushed in that direction. This glue is basically set, and we are done. All right, now we can get holes like that filled in just by doing the old little bead of magic sculpt business. Just put a little bead in there, cram it in, pack it in there. Won't have much left over because I'm going to pack it as far down into there as I can get it. Okay, same on the other side. Go ahead and just pack it in there. Pack it. Okay, keep going through it. Same thing.
Well, that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. I hope you got something out of it, and I'll see you in the next video.